As a reminder, for more Microsoft webcasts, you can visit microsoft.com/webcast. And again, I'd like to welcome everyone to today's MSDN webcast, Guided Hands-On Lab, using Visual Basic to create an Excel chart based on SQL Server data. And now, without any further delay, I'm going to turn the floor over to today's presenter, Cameron Fillers.
Hey everyone, glad to see you could all make it. Just to let you know, we're going to do a guided hands-on lab using Visual Basic to create an Excel chart based on SQL Server data. And a couple things, if you have a question, just go ahead down in the questions and answers and post your question in there, and one of us will be able to go and help you out as soon as possible and try to pretty much solve any problems that you have. Now, there are a couple rewards for doing this Visual Basic 2005 Labcast. If you do either a demand or a live one, what you do is, if you do one of them, is you get selected chapters from Francisco Bellini's book, Programming Microsoft Visual Basic 2005, the language. You also get 35 off estimated retail value of select Microsoft Visual Studio 2005 books. And you also get a Visual Basic 2005 keyboard shortcut reference poster. Also, if you do two of them, the bread and butter of this pretty much, you can get a complimentary copy of Visual Studio 2005 standard software. So pretty much how that works, you do one today, you do one, you do one of the on-demand ones, and pretty much the second week of July, I would guess, or actually June, you'll go ahead and you'll receive a free copy of it. So it's just one of those things. If you've already done one in one of the past months, pretty much if you do one in the past month and you do one in this month, once again, you will receive one the second week of next month. So without further ado, let's go ahead and look at the exercises. How it's going to work today is that this is actually broken up into 5 exercises, but since the first 3 exercises are pretty short, I'm going to do all 3 of those exercises together in one go. First exercise is pretty much just creating an Excel workbook project in Visual Studio 2005. Second exercise is laying out the spreadsheet. Third exercise is hooking up the event handler. And fourth one, which is going to allow us to add code to import data from the database. Fifth exercise is also going to allow us to add a chart, which is going to use that information from the database that we pull. So let's go ahead and look at exercise 1. So exercise 1 is, first one, create an Excel workbook project. Exercise 2, insert a hyperlink in the Excel document. And so it's pretty simple. Task 3, which has 2 tasks, or exercise 3, 2 tasks. First task, create the event method. Second task, link the Excel target to the event code. So, as you can see, now I am sharing my desktop. I'm going to give it a couple seconds so it pops on up for you guys. A couple little features. If you guys don't have your Labcast open at this current point in time, Tracy will go and display a link for you in the Question and Manager so that you guys can pretty much open up this almost exact same instance, but it will be your own. And that way that if you have any questions or are having some problems with it, you can go ahead and ask those questions. If you look in the lower right-hand corner where you see this Need Help, this little Get Help Now button, if you click on that, you can ask a question in here, and the proctors will be able to go and see the fact that you're having problems and are having difficulties, and we can help you with that. Also, if you go on the desktop and you right-click and go to Properties, just, sort of thing, right now when I'm doing the presentation, I'm presenting in 800 by 600. That's because different resolutions on all of you guys' computers come up in a different way. So I do it that way so it's pretty universal, but that doesn't mean you have to work with it that way. So you bring up the display properties and you access the settings tab, the very far right one, and you go down to screen resolution and you set up to whatever size you want. Okay? Also, one other thing is that if you are actually working in the Labcast and your mouse disappears, what you can do is go to Start, go to Control Panel. It'll bring up the Control Panel, and all you have to do is go down to Mouse, which is out in the middle of the screen, double-click it. Go to, I believe it's Pointers, change the scheme from Windows Default, and change it to Windows Black. And that should solve your problem. On different computers, it acts in different ways, different laptops. It all depends. So I went ahead and changed it to black. Also, on the right-hand side where it says Lab Overview, exercises 1 through 5, that has the exact same information that I'll be teaching you. So pretty much you can go, you can look at that. And one last thing before we get started, there is a copy and paste issue with using the Labcast. Labcast, by default, does not have the ability to copy and paste. So if you want to copy and paste, I recommend, actually you have to do this, is go ahead, click on Start, go to Notepad, and for instance, I'm going to open up one of the labs. I'll go to exercise 2, and I'll copy and paste the scenario information. So you right-click, go to copy, go into your Notepad, make sure it has focus, and then go up to the top where it says action. Where it says action, go and scroll down to paste text from the host clipboard and give it access. Now what this does is actually it's JavaScript that goes and pastes this information in, and so it's just pretty much throwing that information on in. It is not 100% accurate, so you might be missing a little bit of information. Now this is incredibly important if you're copying code. Today in this labcast, all the code that we are actually going to be using is actually contained in snippets. So let's go ahead and get started, and I'll explain snippets when it's actually brought up. I'm going to start up Microsoft Visual Studio 2005 by going down to Start. You can either go to Microsoft Visual Studio 2005 from the start, or you can go to All Programs, go to Microsoft Visual Studio 2005, and click on Microsoft Visual Studio 2005. All right? So sorry about that. That'll just go ahead and help a lot of people out if there's any issues. So I've gone ahead. I started up Microsoft Visual Studio 2005. I'm going to go ahead and click on File, go down to New Project, click on that. And right now I have this Visual Basic tree and go down to Office. I'm going to choose an Excel workbook, and I'm going to call it Excel Chart Demo. Okay, going to click on OK. Now that I clicked on OK, it's going to give me some information. Do I want to create a new document called Excel Chart Demo? Yes, I do. So I'm going to click on the OK button. All right. Give it a second to kind of bring the information on up as it creates the project for us. All right, so now it's gone and created the chart for us. It's opened up the very first sheet for us inside of the Excel chart demo.xls file. So now that that is done, that is actually the end of exercise 1. As you can see, it's pretty short, so I'm going to move straight on to exercise 2. Exercise 2, what I'm going to do is now that I have this Excel chart demo open, I'm going to go down to, it doesn't really matter which one, I'll just choose B3. And now that I've chosen one, got to go up and click on Insert. You got to make sure you actually click on one of the cells that brings up the abilities of Excel into Microsoft Visual Studio, or else Insert will not populate and not be displayed. So I'm going to go ahead to the top, click on Insert. Now that I click on Insert, I'm going to go down to the very bottom where it says Hyperlink. I'm going to click on that. So it brings us this nice little panel, Insert Hyperlink panel. Right now it says Existing File or Web Page, but what I want to do is I want to place in this document. So I'm going to click on the second one down, place in this document. The text to display, what I want it to display is Create New Chart. Now you have to make sure that you type it just this way. It is case sensitive because of the fact that we are going to use this actual string located in here inside of our code, so it does a comparison. So pretty much whatever you type in here, if you change it, you say, my name is Doug or happy, you have to make sure you type the exact same thing in the code, and I'll point out where to type that in the code. So text to display, create new chart. I'm going to go ahead, click on OK. As you can see, it went ahead and created our hyperlink for us. So that is the end of exercise 2. So now I'm going to move on to exercise 3, which is hooking up the event handler. So now that we went and created this hyperlink, I'm just going to go ahead. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to, if you look on the right under Solution Explorer, which I just selected, I selected the Excel Chart Demo solution. Now I'm going to go into the Excel Chart Demo.xls file, and I'm going to choose this workbook.vb. I'm going to right-click it, and it brings us a couple options, and I'm going to go down to the View Code section. Okay. So, as you can see, we have a public class this workbook. We have 2 private subs. We will not be doing anything with those private subs within this actual presentation, but all you need to do, okay, also, now that we are into the code behind, if you look on the left-hand side, you'll see a toolbox. And inside that toolbox, you'll see Excel SQL snippets, okay? Now, these snippets have all the code throughout this entire presentation contained within it. You'll have to excuse the fact that it says exercise 1. Just take any one of those and add 2 to it. So exercise 1 is in fact exercise 3, exercise 2 is in fact exercise 4, and exercise 3 is in fact exercise 5. So what I'm going to do in order to go and make sure that you guys aren't just sitting here watching me type code, as well as to make sure that there is no problems with, for instance, typing in something incorrectly, I will use the snippets, but as I use the snippets, I'll do my best to explain what each line of code does so that you guys have a basic understanding and can understand exactly what's going on with it. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to access exercise 1 task B for this workbook. I'm going to double click it. Also, one more thing before we get started. You have to make sure that whenever you insert code into this program, that it's between the public class, this workbook, and between the end class. It has to be contained within there or else it will not work correctly. So now that that's done, I'm going to go down to 2 lines below this workbook, and I'm going to double click the exercise 1 task B. Now, I'm going to go ahead and scroll to the right a little bit so you can see a little bit more of what's going on. Just a little bit more. And what it did is create a private sub, so a private function called this workbook, and it handles the event sheet follow hyperlink. So pretty much when we go and we double click on that button, and as you can see, it handles the me sheet follow hyperlink section. So what this is that whenever we actually go and double click on a hyperlink, it's going to be thrown inside of this method. And now that I've done that, I'm going to go and access the second snippet, exercise 1 task C. And what it's going to do is since any hyperlink gets thrown into this, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to check for the target name to be create new chart. Now, as I said before in the actual sheet, whatever you type in there, it has to match this right here or else it won't work. So what it's going to do, when you click on the button, it's going to access this event, and it's going to throw in whatever hyperlink you clicked, and it's going to pass it in as the target. So the target.name, the name of the target, we're going to compare it with create new chart, and if that is true, then it's going to call the load data and create chart method. Now that'll be done in the following exercise. That is the end of exercise 3. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you guys about 5 or 10 minutes to work on this on your own. And if you have any questions, make sure that if you're actually running a labcast, to go in the lower right-hand corner in the Need Help section and post your question there. And if you don't know how to access the labcast, ask the question in the question manager inside of Live Meeting. So I will see you guys in about 10 minutes. With that, so we're going to go ahead and move on to exercise 4. Exercise 4 has 4 tasks. First task, which is going to be to add code to import data. And then we're going to create the reset workbook method. And then we're going to write code to pull information from the database. And then we're going to go and write some code to insert data from the database into our Excel project. So, going to go ahead, access my labcast once again. So as you can see, I am back at the code behind for the project. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add some imports. And in order to do that, go to the very top of the page and go ahead and click on exercise 2 task C, which is going to access the imports. Import system.data.SQL client. Now what this is going to allow me to do is going to allow me to go and create objects, which will allow us to go and connect to the database. We're not going to actually make use of that until a little bit, but just so you know what it's actually doing. And then underneath this workbook, I'm going to create some global functions, actually global variables, for exercise task 2 or exercise 2 task D variables. I'm going to create 2 objects. Private Excel sheet object, which is an Excel worksheet, and then we're going to have a private Excel chart, which we won't use until exercise 5, which is an Excel.chart object. And then, right now, I'm going to hit enter 2 more times at the end of chart, and I'm going to add the reset workbook method. There we go. Added some code. So I'm going to scroll a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right, so we can see a lot more of the code. So I created a private sub reset workbook, and what this is going to do is going to get rid of all the information from our actual Excel spreadsheet except for our active sheet. So what this is going to do, we have a try clause right here. So we're going to have a try and catch. And what this section right here, this code that I just highlighted, says this application that display alerts equals false. Now what that actually means is that when you're actually accessing the Excel spreadsheet and you try to go and delete one of the sheets using some code behind, it's going to prompt you and ask you whether or not you actually want to do that. Now, we don't want that to pop up. Let's say we had 20 sheets for every single sheet that we want to delete. So what we're going to do is we're going to set the display alerts to false so it doesn't actually ask us that. Now, you'll see later on that we're going to set that back to true because we don't want that to be false throughout, for the rest of the time, that it never actually prompts us for anything. So just for right now, as we perform this next section. So we're going to create a variable called WS, which is an Excel.worksheet. And then we're going to do for each WS in me.worksheets. So for every single worksheet that we have in this project, we're going to go through each one of them, iterate through, and set that for each time to the variable WS. And then we're going to find out if WS is the active sheet. If not WS is me.activeSheet, then, so you can also read that as me.activeSheet. If it is not the active sheet, then we're going to go ahead and do ws.delete. So it's going to delete the sheet. Okay? So for every single sheet, we have 3 sheets. The first sheet actually has information on it. When we click on that, it's going to go through here, and it's going to go and look and see the fact that the very first sheet, sheet 1, is the only active sheet, is currently the sheet that we're working with. But sheet 2 and sheet 3 are not, and so they're going to get deleted. But they are not going to be prompted because we set display alerts to false. And then we're going to create another variable called CHT, short for chart, as an Excel.chart. And so for each chart in me.charts, so for every single chart that we have in this, for every one of our charts, what we're going to do is we're going to do a CHT.delete. So that means that if we have multiple charts, it's going to delete all the charts, and then at a later point in time we're going to recreate them. Okay? So it's going to iterate through all of our charts and delete them. And then right now we have a catch clause, but we're actually not doing anything with it. And finally, we have a finally section, which is pretty much when we are done running with the try and catch, it's going to call this, and it's going to be this application.display alerts equals true. So right here is where we go and we set it back up so that we display the alerts once again. Okay? So that is the reset workbook method. All right? So I'm going to go down, I'm going to hit enter at the end of nsub, and I'm going to double click on the SQL command section. Okay? Now, this is especially where you want to copy and paste and do it correctly and load it into Notepad because there is a lot of code here and there is no IntelliSense. IntelliSense is how when you start typing something in Microsoft Visual Studio, it'll pop up information for you, as well as the ability that if you type something incorrectly, there will be a squiggly line underneath it to tell you that that is actually not valid. Because this is all pretty much just a giant string, it's very, very easy right here to go and mess up and type something incorrectly and run into a lot of problems. Okay? So we have a private function called getDataReader, which returns a SQL data reader. A SQL data reader is part of that actual import object that we did at the very top, the SQL.data. So that is a SQL data reader. And what we're going to do, we are going to create a connection object, which is a SQL connection, which connects to server, XPV Lab, and SQL Express. SQL Express is our actual connection, our login. And then we have our database, which is the Northwind database, the traditional Microsoft standard database. And integrated security is whether or not you have a secure connection to the database. So that's true. It's pretty standard right there. This right here is pretty much whenever you go and create an application, that's the standard information that you'll need to go and create a connection to the database. Then we have a command variable, which is a SQL command variable. And inside of this is how we go and we access all our information within the database. So this entire section right here is a string that we're going to go and throw into the database. It's our SQL query. So it's pretty much just, to make this really, really short, the two things that we're going to pull out of the database is category name and average quantity. Okay? And there's a lot of inner joins and a lot of groups and averaging in order to go and get us all of this information. But that's essentially all you need to know for this right now, which is that we're going to pull out category name and the average quantity. Okay? And then at the very end, after the comma, we're going to throw in the connection. So the command is going to do the SQL query to this location right here into the SQL connection. And then once it has that information, it's going to open the connection and connect it to the database. And then we're going to return the results of execute reader. And then after that, we're going to go ahead and close the connection. Okay? So what that means right there in this line, it's going to do an execute reader, so it's going to execute our command, and then it's going to close the connection on that. But it's going to return the results. As you can see up here, a little bit higher up, this method returns a SQL data reader. So those results will be returned as a SQL data reader. So at the end of the function, I'm going to go ahead, hit enter twice, and insert our next section. Our next section is the setup worksheet. So as you remember, 2 methods earlier, we had the code which pretty much deleted everything from the worksheet except for our active sheet. And this is going to go ahead and set us up so that we can go and start displaying the data correctly. So as you can see this comment right here, add a new sheet after the active sheet. So once everything's been deleted, we have one sheet. We're going to make one other sheet currently. And what we're going to do is we're going to have our Excel sheet, which is that private variable that we created earlier. And we're going to use direct cast. And what direct cast does is it goes and turns whatever object this is into this object, which is the Excel.worksheet. So we're going to take this me.worksheets.add, and what we're going to do is we're going to create a copy of the active sheet, and we're going to direct cast it into Excel sheet. And then we're going to take Excel sheet.name, and we're going to set the name to average order volume. And then what we're going to do is we're going to copy the field names to Excel, and we're going to bold the column headings. Just to let you know that I am currently with this section right here, the one that I'm highlighting. There is a small error in the lab. These should be reversed, but in order to go and make it follow along with the lab manual, I'm going to go and keep it as such. And what that is we're going to direct cast, once again, parameter 1, take parameter 2, and cast parameter 1 as an Excel.range for Excel sheet.cell1, which is the very upper left-hand corner, cell 1.1, 1, comma 1. And we're going to set the formula. So actually what the header is average quantity, and we're going to set the font to bold. We're going to set that true. Okay? And then with the next section, this Excel sheet.cells1, comma 2, which is the one directly to the right of the very first one, for the Excel.range, we're going to set the formula to category name, and we're going to set the font.bold to true as well. Okay? Now, really these should be reversed because it won't really match up with what the results are. But just so you get a good understanding of what's going on, don't worry about it. It's more important to understand the concept of pulling the information out from the database and displaying it and taking that information from the database and creating a chart from it and doing it pretty much on the fly. So went down 2 lines and inserting our next method, which is a private method, load and format data. And as you can see, it takes in a parameter, which is our SQL data reader, which is going to be the information that we pulled earlier. And it's going to call the variable data reader, or DR for short. It's going to create 2 integers, an I integer and a J integer. And so what we're going to do is we're going to copy the data from the SQL data reader and display it into our Excel worksheet. So as you can see, we're going to set I to 1. And while dr.read, which means while there's still information to read from our result, our data reader result, we're going to take I and set that to I plus 1. Because remember, we have to do that because of the very first cell actually has either their average quantity or category name. So we don't want to write over this information, these ones that I'm highlighting right now, category name and average quantity. So we want to go and do the ones directly below it. So in cell 2, and for J, this next line right here, for J equals 0 to 1, so for pretty much the very first one is going to be cell 2, 0, and then cell 2, 1. We're going to take Excel sheet.cells, and we're going to take I, and that is going to be cell 2. We're going to do J plus 1, so that it doesn't start at 0, so it'll be 2, 1. and it'll equal data reader object 0 and do a toString for it. Okay? So the reason why we have this j equals 0 to 1 is so that we can actually pull in this information from the data reader. And so pretty much it'll just iterate through and fill up all the columns with the correct information. Once we're done with that, we're going to close the data reader. And then we're going to format the columns. And we're going to go ahead and do a direct cast of our Excel.range for columns 1. So we're going to go ahead and grab the entire first column. And what we're going to do is we're going to go and call the AutoFit method. So pretty much if you've ever worked in Excel and you created a bunch of different objects within the cells, and for sometimes the information that you put into the cell is larger than the actual size of the cell, and you go to the very top and you double click on the top of the column, as I'll show you in a little bit, it'll go ahead and it'll auto-fit it so that all the objects fit into the cell. It'll go ahead and resize it for you. So all this does is just takes that entire column and it auto-fits it so that it looks nice and neat. And then once again, we're going to take a direct cast for the Excel sheet.columns2, the entire second column, and we're going to typecast it as an Excel.range. And we're going to go and call number format, and so it's pretty much set up in the way of a traditional currency with 0.00, and we're also going to call the AutoFit method on it. Okay, one more method, and we're good to go with this actual exercise, or this task, I should say. The very last one is our load data and create chart method. Now, we go back to the very top, I believe. No, let's go down a little bit. Okay, so the way that this works, we go ahead, we click on the button, it goes into the This Workbook Sheet Follow hyperlink, and it goes in and it compares the target.name with create new chart. And if that is true, then it's going to call the load data and create chart method. So that's going to go up to here. And it's going to go and reset the workbook. So it's going to pretty much delete all the sheets except for the active sheet, remove all the charts. It's going to set up the worksheet. It's going to create a new sheet. It's going to go and set up the very upper left-hand corner in cell 1-1. It's going to set average quantity. And then in cell 1-2, it's going to set, what is it? Let me scroll up a little quick. Category name. Okay, scroll back down again. And then it's going to go and pretty much set that information to bold. And it's going to set the name of the actual sheet. And then we're going to create a variable, a SQL data reader, and we're going to take in the results of get data reader, which pretty much does the query to the database and sets it as a SQL data reader object. And then we're going to throw that into load formation data. We're going to load the data reader into load and format data. And what that's going to do is it's going to pretty much take the information that we pulled from the database and it's going to populate it inside of the cells. So that's what's going on. That's the flow of our program. So now that I've done all that, I'm going to start up the program. You can do this in a couple different ways. You can go to the very top and click on this green arrow that says Start Debugging. You can also go to the Debug dropdown and go to Start Debugging, or you can click on F5. I'm going to click on F5. Going to start up our program. The build was succeeded, as you see in the lower left-hand corner. It's going to pull up our Excel spreadsheet. There we go. I hover over the Create New Chart. It gives me the ability, if that's a link, I'm going to left click it. As you can see, at the bottom there was sheet. Let me go ahead and close this real quick. I went a little too quick. No, I don't want to save changes. So let me go ahead and start this up one more time. So I have our Excel spreadsheet. As you can see at the bottom, it says Sheet 1, Sheet 2, and then Sheet 3. So we have all three sheets here by default. And I go ahead and I click on the Create New Chart. You'll see at the very bottom, Sheet 2 and Sheet 3 disappear, and a new sheet is added called Average Order Volume. Okay? As you can see, in cell 1-1, we have average quantity. Cell 1-2, category name. They should be, if you really want to go and get nitpicky, they should be reversed, but don't worry about that. As you can see, they're set to bold, just like they are in the actual code. And inside of this row, or this column, we have all the actual category names. And as you can see, that it was already auto-fitted. what autofit does. Let me show you real quick. If you go and you scroll to the left a little bit, as you can see, a lot of the text is cut off. But if you double click it, it goes ahead and autofits it, okay? So it finds out the object that's farthest to the right and puts it just a little bit to the right of it, okay? So that's what the autofit does. It makes it so that it looks nice and neat, okay? And in column B, which is essentially the average quantity column, we have all of our information. We have our numbers. And then as you can see, it's been formatted in a currency format, as you said, or as you saw in the code. So that is the end of task 4, okay? So what we're going to do is I'm going to give you about 10 or 15 minutes to work on it. Make sure that if you need to use the snippets, go ahead and use it. If you're going to do the copy and paste method, make sure you go and you use action and you paste text from host clipboard, and make sure you do it into a notepad document or a notepad file, and you actually double check it, because that information, there will be stuff missing from it, especially if you're doing large portions of code. So you need to double check that, okay? So I'm going to give you guys about 15 minutes to work on it, and I'll see you then. Time to move on to exercise 5, which is adding the chart. It has 2 tasks. One's going to go and be the create chart method, and the second task is going to change our load data and create chart method and add in 1 line of code, which is going to call the create chart method. So let's go ahead and go back to our program. One person was asking about that their stuff is in read-only mode. If you don't actually stop debugging, then you are currently in read-only mode and you can't change it. What you can do is you can go to the top and hit the stop button for stop debugging, and then you can get out of read-only mode, okay? So let's go ahead, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and add in this one method, which is going to be our create chart method. And so we have private sub create chart, which I just added, and which will allow us to go and create the chart. So the private variable that we declared at the very top, we had an Excel sheet, which is a worksheet, and then we have Excel chart, which is an Excel chart. And what we're going to do is we're going to direct cast me.charts.add. So what we're going to do is we're going to get our current Excel sheet, and what we're going to do is we're going to create a new chart, and we're going to direct cast it as a chart. So pretty much what that is take our current sheet and direct cast it as a chart and store it as Excel chart. And then we're going to create a variable called cell range, which is an Excel.range object. And what we're going to do is we're going to direct cast Excel sheet.cells11, so our current cell 11, direct cast it as an Excel range and set it as cell range. So pretty much what that's going to do is give us our categories, so the way that the chart is displayed, we're going to pass it in as one of the parameters. And what we're going to do is we're going to get Excel chart.chartWizard. Now, one thing I want to preface before I go any further is that there are a lot of different options in the chart wizard. There's a bunch of different ways that you could overload it, a lot more information you can put in there. This is just one of them. If you're actually using this for business purposes, I highly recommend that you go through and check out a lot of these different little options in here and a lot of the different charts that you can create on the fly, so that you can pretty much set it up however you wish. So the source is going to be cell range.current region. So what that's going to do is we're going to set the cell range, or whatever is contained in cell 11, as one of the sources, and so it's going to go and actually post it in there. The gallery, which is the type of chart we're going to create, is going to be excel.constants XL3D bar, so we're going to create this as an XL3D bar chart. And we're going to plot by columns, by going and throwing in excel.xl row column, XL columns. And then we're going to go and it's going to let us know whether or not we want to have category labels. We have 1, so that's yes. Series label, do we want that? Yes, since we have a 1. Whether or not to display a legend, we're going to set that as false. We don't want to display a legend. And the title of it is going to be Excel sheet.name. Remember earlier we went ahead and created the Excel sheet and we set the name of it. So that's going to take that and set that as the title of the chart. So since Excel chart is essentially pretty much, it's like a sheet. It's just a little bit different. We're going to set the name of it as Excel sheet.name and append to it chart. So that's how it's going to be displayed at the bottom of the Excel file. And then we're going to go and do a with, so we can actually do multi-lines. directcast Excel chart, chart groups 1, and we're going to directcast that as a chart group. And what we're going to do is we're going to set the gap of the objects by 20, and we're going to allow it to vary by categories, so true. And then we're going to get our Excel chart and take our chart title, and what we're going to do is we're going to go and set 3 objects to it, or change 3 of the settings, which is going to set the font size to 16. We're going to add shadow to it, and the border of it, the line style, is going to be excel.constants.excelsolid. Okay? So now let's go back up to our load data and create chart method, which is pretty much, as I explained before, doing the nitty-gritty work, going and calling the different information throughout, and then loading it on up. And what you need to do is you need to go to the end of load and format data, which throws in the SQL data reader, and hit enter, and hit the last snippet, or the last line of code, which we'll call the create chart method, the method that we just created. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and hit play. Going to go ahead, open up Excel for us. It has our create new chart, our sheet 2 and 3. Click on the create new chart, deletes sheets 2 and 3, and then creates average order volume, and has our information right here. And as you can see, average order volume is the name of this actual sheet. And what it did is it created this chart with average order volume as the title of the chart. And then actually the name of the chart is average order volume with appended to chart, as I said before. It has, on the side, it has our average quantity on the bottom, and on the side it's going to have the other variable name. I can't remember off the top of my head. Let me go back real quick. Category name. There we go. And so we have that information, and then it has the actual bar graph, the Excel 3D bar that I spoke of earlier. So pretty much, as you can see, there's a lot of different things you can do. You can change around the way that it goes and creates the chart, and so it has a lot of different powers with you right there. So what's going to happen now is I'm going to go and hand this off over to Tracy, and she's going to go and explain to you about taking the survey, and then I'm going to be around for probably the next 30 minutes going and answering people's questions and helping you guys out. So I have to thank you so much for coming and showing up today for this Excel demo in Visual Basic, and hope to see you guys again.
Excellent. Thanks, Cameron. I do want to remind everybody that for more information, they can print a PDF of today's session. To do that, just go to the File menu in your upper navigation bar. Now, please feel free to continue to submit your questions into the Q&A panel found at the bottom of your live meeting screen. We will get to those in just a moment. As a reminder, for more webcasts, you can visit Microsoft.com/webcast. This webcast will be available for download in about 48 to 72 hours. And if you have any webcast content ideas, something out there you want to see and haven't yet, we would love to hear from you. Just take note of this link here. And if anyone is interested in receiving a free 14-day trial of Microsoft Office Live Meetings, you'll want to visit Microsoft.com/presentlive. And now for filling out that survey today, you're going to be automatically entered in to win this 30 gigabyte Zune digital media player. That gives you a little incentive to fill that out for us. And here is the survey. Please follow the links provided to complete today's webcast evaluation. And with that, I do want to extend a very special thank you to Cameron for your presentation today, and also to the audience for attending today's MSDN Labcast. Ladies and gentlemen, this will conclude the audio portion of today's presentation.